wake up at 4:45 in the a.m. every morning. That's about 12 hours before most niggas wake up. I am a very spiritual person. I start each day by thanking the white man for the sunrise, for the land I walk on, for the air I breathe. I also apologize for niggas, but Lord knows they ain't gonna apologize for themselves. I am not black, nor do I consider myself to be black. Many people mistake me for being Negro because they don't know that I am currently living with the heartbreak of revitiligo. That's a skin condition that's the opposite of what Michael Jackson's got. Every morning I apply this topical ointment made of bleach and sulfur. I like to think it works. Luckily, I hadn't gotten much darker in the last few years.
Just like yesterday, the Supreme Court gives a mixture of good and bad. And today, they struck down Trump's attempt to rewrite birthright citizenship, to rewrite a constitutional amendment via executive order. Yes, today, this happened.
We're in a new world now, as Justice Alito pointed out to, where 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen.
Well, it's a new world. It's the same Constitution.
That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system. It's ridiculous. We're the only country in the world that does this with birthright, as you know. And it's just absolutely ridiculous.
So I'm going to share my commentary while going through that article, right? But afterwards, we're going to get into, this is probably an unofficial Procyon Files, video too. So we gotta talk about Clarence Thomas, man. And you'll see what I mean. Yes, very good ruling. Very good ruling. Finally. Some sanity. I don't know why it wasn't 9-0, but it was 6-3. So it said citizens born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are citizens at birth under the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in a 6-3 ruling. No, Justice Brett Kavanaugh concurred in part. But look who dissented, which is crazy to me. Justice Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas dissented. I don't get it, man. I don't. Samuel Alito and Neil Gorsuch, yeah. Or, G-side or old country racists, they are. But Clarence Thomas? Hey, Clarence, the 14th Amendment was made so that people that look like you, your lineage, would be citizens. That is what it was enacted to do. Like, this... Let me highlight this motherfucker. I can't even highlight it, but Jesus Christ. Look at this man. Man, super Procyon. Those of you who don't know what Procyon means directly. Super Procyon boy. I gotta go back. Justice Clarence Thomas dissented. Wow. All persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states they reside. Point blank, period. Yeah, we know the whole history, but oh my God. It was rejected. Yeah. All these judges put a hold on it and they rejected it. The U.S. won Kim Ark. I think I did a whole thing about that. I'm glad this happened, boy. Yeah, this man is a super Procyon. Extremely super. And he's such a Procyon that let me share you a little bit of what Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor wrote. They basically called him a Procyon to his face. So they wrote, despite his long-standing endorsement of colorblind constitution, Justice Thomas now surprisingly suggests that the citizenship clause was a race-conscious remedial measure. Let me continue. It was a race-conscious remedial measure relating only to freed slaves such as Dred Scott, Jackson wrote. It is for this reason, he says, that the children who were born in the United States but to parents not domiciled here are not entitled to claim birthright citizenship. But that narrow vision of the 14th Amendment bears little relationship to the history of its ratification. Even worse, Justice Thomas's telling elides the entire point of the second founding. The Reconstruction Amendments were an anti-caste, anti-subordination reset for the nation, not a mere spot treatment for the dark stain of slavery, Jackson wrote. Basically, stop being a Procyon. Please, sir, stop being a Procyon. Now, to give us more background on Clarence Thomas, let's bring in Joy Reid from back when she was on MSNBC. Check it out.
Let's just be clear. Clarence Thomas was born in Pinpoint, Georgia. He is of the Gullah extraction. Yep. He didn't even speak English until he was 7 years old. He spoke the Geechee tongue and was so afraid to speak in front of white people because he was always told, don't speak Geechee in front of white people because it would embarrass you, that he almost never spoke at all. There was a nun, a white nun, whose largesse helped get him through school and get him those good grades. He has been assisted by white patrons, really his whole life, even now by very rich ones, as they fly him around the country. And to your very point, he seems to deeply resent all of the assistance he got, and he wants to make sure that nobody like him ever gets that kind of help again, because it helps his self-image so that he can lie to himself and fool himself and maybe hate himself a little less for having gotten help all along his path to the Supreme Court. And let's be clear, the most important thing to know about his confirmation, other than the fact that he's accused credibly of sexual misconduct, is the polling that got him over the line. And it was the polling that I very much remember. I was one of the few black folk who was against him. It was the polling that showed that about 7 in 10 black people supported his ascension to the seat once held by the great Thurgood Marshall, and he is not his equal. It was black people's support that got wavering members of that Judiciary Committee
Democrats,
and wavering senators.
They needed Democratic votes. There was a Democratic majority. That's why Joe Biden is in those hearings running. They needed the Democratic votes.
And it was only black people's support in those polls that got wavering Democrats to vote for him. And he has repaid black people with scorn ever since.
Yes, as she said, 7 in 10 black people. Go back and listen to what she said. And she ended by saying he has repaid black people back with scorn ever since, including his dissent on this decision. Including his dissent on this decision on the 14th Amendment, which is responsible for black people to move from being 3/5 in the original meaning of the Constitution and when this country was founded, to being full citizens. And has repaid black people back with a dissent on affirming the 14th Amendment, which again makes black people citizens. African Americans, foundational black Americans like him, be citizens. Uber Procyon, bro. Uber Procyon. For real.
Well, that concludes this episode of Procyon Files. I had to tag my buddy Ilum Way Pondit in on this one, but he asked this question earlier. The two are related. They're twins, and I have to say that I concur with his line of reasoning on this one. Because, honestly, we have to come up with a new classification for this breed of Uber Procyon. His name is still genus Procyon in this case, but in this case, due to the relationship mentioned, his species is now C. raucus. The C, I would say, is, means something else. And as you can see, he's an Uber Procyon because some of his own people sometimes can't believe that he's this much of a Sambo and this much of a cuck for white supremacy. So, yeah, see, the taxonomy of this type of dangerous Uber Procyon. See right here, this is what we've mocked up rather quickly because we did not realize this Procyon has been around for decades. We did not realize how dangerous he could actually be. And this is the type of Procyon that I think the ancestors may have been warning us about, and we should have been studying quite dutifully over decades. And so now we have to study him. This is what I envision for present and future generations. We need to study this type of Procyon and ultimately know its history and what it is capable of. No? It must be studied. And yes, as this man says here, it was actually domesticated. It existed for a long time, but it was actually domesticated under Lewis Powell of the Powell Memo. Yes, and steadily trained over the decades. The Heritage Foundation and Federalist Society and other right-wing think tanks over the decades. Until finally, the training was completed and it was unleashed on the nation on his black brethren by the Project 2025 and Kevin Roberts. So yes, do be aware and pay attention to this type of uber dangerous Procyon. C. raucus. Have a day.